be this way, apparently. Let me put this up here. How many people? No people on here. That's good news for me as I get used to this machine. So, this is a little bit embarrassing because this is meant to be my first live walkabout, and it appears that I am in a hotel because it started raining the moment I left my house. And let me just bring this forward a little bit. So it started raining really quite heavily. I was on my motorbike, and my plan was to go to Sagrada Familia and to start every week outside a different Barcelona tourist spot. And I will do that in the future, but it really began raining, and I don't have windscreen wipers on my glasses. So I thought I'd come to a hotel and have a drink instead. So I know it might look like this is a drinkabout and not a walkabout, but I can assure you that each week in future, weather permitting, I will start off in a different place and give you a little flavor of Barcelona, and then quite possibly go and sit down somewhere so that I can talk to you in peace without hoping not to get run over by a tram or a bus or a car or any other means of transport. So this is the first live that we've done on YouTube, and I know we did one last week on Facebook. Let's see that as a kind of dress rehearsal, because when I look back at it, I kind of went in every possible direction. And this weekend, I want to do it a little bit more coherently and with a little bit more structure. Now, I can see there's one person on here already. I can't see who it is, so I'm not able apparently to see comments, but maybe they will go or they will come up as I go on. So if you are the one person watching, try and comment now. 2 people are watching. Oh my goodness, I suddenly increased my audience by 100%. If you can comment now, then do that so I can see if it comes up on my screen. And if it doesn't, then I'll just have to blather on and come back and read your comments later on. Okay. Oh, I can see Oluwatoyin Islimot. Hi. Yes, fantastic. That looks like a Nigerian name. So we've got somebody in Nigeria watching this, or at least somebody from Nigeria. So that's wonderful. Hi there. So what I'm going to do today is let's revise a little bit what is the purpose of this group entitled 700 Days to Live. I'll explain for those who weren't here at the beginning that I am in a bar for the simple reason that it's raining outside. I was definitely planning to go outside and see people and give you a little bit of a backdrop of Barcelona, but now you can see a Barcelona bar, so that's actually quite nice. And I'm drinking a gin and tonic, so the purpose of this every week is not a drinkabout, it is actually really going to be a walkabout, which may involve some drinking, but the purpose is just to reach out. Oh, my God, there's 21 people here. I've suddenly multiplied my audience by 10. That is amazing. So, what is the purpose of this group, mysteriously called 700 Days to Live? I can assure you it's not a death cult. We're not counting down until the day we all die. It's quite the opposite, in fact. It's all about how to live. And the word that I would bring to this is called intentional living. Now, this is a phrase you may have heard. It's becoming a little bit of a buzzword. Let me explain to you what intentional living means. It simply means living not mindfully so much. I think the word mindful has become a little bit overused. And mindful to me applies more to kind of breathing and knowing exactly where you are at every moment when you do the dishes, when you walk on the street. I wouldn't say this is that. Intentional living means making choices and being very conscious of the choices we make in a world which is constantly changing. So that's 1%, one part of this group is about that, about reflecting on what we do and asking each other about the choices. I'm seeing lots of people here arrive. Blackie, hi, I don't know where you are. I've already mentioned Oluwatoyin in Nigeria. It's great to see you both. Let me know where you're from. Blackie, where are you from? Put your comment in there so I can find out who is tuning in from where in the world. So I am in Barcelona, which is where I live, and which is where I run this group from. And this group has now become my life. This movement of getting people to talk together and bring together and to come together and talk about daily lives. Patricia from Sardinia. Hi, Patricia. Okay, that's a name I actually know. Okay, so one part of this group is about what we're calling intentional living, which is about living with more consciousness, living with more choices, living with more awareness of what we do, the way we spend our time, the way we interact with other people, the way we look at people who are different from us, the way we deal with other people, people whose beliefs and cultures might be different from ours, and how we dialogue with them. Because I have a firm belief that the more we dialogue together, the more we talk together and even ask each other some interesting and maybe even dumb questions, then the more we'll understand each other. It's only when people keep in their separate groups that misunderstanding often arises. So, for example, if we're talking about different religions, if I see somebody, a woman wearing a veil, I think it's perfectly good to go up to that person, or not to go up to them on the street maybe, because that might seem a little bit aggressive, but to talk to somebody at a party and tell me why it is you wear the veil, what values are represented as you wear that. Intentional living is a new word, says netizen, great name. So, netizen, I get it, citizen, netizen, that's very cool. So yeah, intentional living is simply not living like an automaton, like a machine, and doing the same things every day. I'm going to talk about this in my little post on Monday, my essay. Because every day, those of you who don't know 700 Days to Live might know that every day, or might not know that every day, there's an essay to begin with. And then I record that essay, and it all goes out together on YouTube, on TikTok in shorts, on Instagram, and on basically all the social media, and especially in the Facebook group we have. And there we get to talk about the issues that I try to bring up. I've lived all around the world. I've lived in 13 countries. I've learned 18 languages. So I consider myself a world citizen, and I don't just mean in Europe. I've lived in Africa, in Eritrea. I've lived in China. I've lived in Bangladesh. I've lived in Turkey. I lived in Somalia. So I've lived in countries where most Western people don't get to see very often. And I've been able to pick up from all of those cultures a set of universal values which I want to explore. It's not my position or my intention to impose any values on everybody. It is my intention to raise questions and get people to examine their own values. So that's very much again behind intentional living. Not simply doing stuff that you've always done because everybody else does it, or thinking the same as everybody else, but putting a little bit more thought and a bit more reflection into what you do so that your habits become choices. And this idea of turning habits into choices is exactly what we're going to cover in Monday's episode. So tune in for that. The other part of this, and it's wonderful that we have people here from Sardinia, for example, also from Nigeria, also from, hey, Raquel says, un saludo. Tell me where you're from, Raquel. Obviously, you're a Spanish speaker. I can speak Spanish too. Muy buenos días. Let's have this dialogue opening up, because a second main aim of my group called 700 Days to Live, and you can find out why that title came about by looking back at the first video on the YouTube page. The second aim is to have a global dialogue, okay? A global dialogue involving people from different parts of the world. So I have met people in all the countries I've lived in. I've met people from, must be at least 100 countries, and the similarities that I see between them all are much more striking than the differences. The cultural differences are superficial, the way we dress, the way we talk, the language, the music, the food we eat. But underneath all of that is a lot more that's very similar. And I want to bring people together to realize just how similar they are, and for people to get an impression of breaking down barriers. So, for example, we might not know many gay people, and we might not know many trans people. The moment we meet people who are gay or who are trans, and then we have a great conversation with them, then that's one barrier has come down, if that barrier existed. Maybe, like me, you're a social ultra-liberal, so you begin life without too many barriers. I think when you live from country to country, your barriers get knocked down because you're simply exposed to so many different ways of living, so many different ways of seeing the world. And when you come from one country and you've spent all your life in that country, it's more difficult to break out of seeing the world through that country's eyes and seeing different people as having values that are somehow not normal, whereas yours are normal. And my point here is to have global dialogue so that we all get together and share ideas, share dialogue, so we hear a lot more of other people's perspectives. So another third, so beyond intentional living and beyond a global dialogue, a third purpose of this group, I would say, is for you to see a project in action. So as you may know, not those who've come for the first time today, this project began only in September the 1st, on September the 1st, so it's very new, and I'm hoping to take this as an experiment and grow it into something which will not only bring people together and get them to think, but also become a community which is supporting each other and which grows all over the world. My aim is to have 1 million people, and you read that here first. As Patricia says, very good point. The things that unite us greatly outnumber the things that divide us. I'm so glad I have my glasses. It's much better if I can look vain without my glasses, but then I can't read anything on the screen. So this is why I have glasses. But at least they're red, so they stand out. So, yes, I think you're right, Patricia. It's very important for us to realize that very basic point. And I think when people see people of a different color or of a different religion wearing different clothes, often it's easy to forget that. But I think it's exposure and dialogue and communication, and more exposure and more dialogue and more communication which will break down ultimately those barriers. Usually in the UK, for example, you might have people who have prejudices about, let's say, people from a Muslim culture. And then they might meet the one guy who runs the corner shop who comes from Pakistan or comes from Bangladesh, and they might get to know him, and then they'll say, okay, I don't understand all of those people, but Ali, he's my friend. That's not good, but it's better than nothing. And then they might even go through a stage where they say, well, Ali's nice, but the others are different. But I think when people get to know more and more and more and realize that other people in other countries have exactly the same fears and hopes and pain points and happiness points that we have, then it's much easier for us to get along together. So there's quite a big aim behind this. I can't say that I want the single group to create world peace, but I certainly want to make a contribution to that. And my contribution as a person of words is a lot more to do with dialogue and communication. There are people out there who are removing landmines. There are people out there who are feeding the poor. There are people out there who are healing the sick. I can't do any of those things personally. So what I can do is do what I do best, which is to host a community and bring it together so that we can then begin to communicate together. So, as I said, you're witnessing the birth, you're at the very beginning. Today is the first episode on YouTube. You're witnessing the birth of a new project, which I hope will reach 1 million people. Now you can quote me on that. The day is the 13th, lucky 13th of September. And I would like to see it really grow to that many people over the course of the coming years, because I want to be in this for the long term. And I really want to make this into something which supports the community and supports me. I want to make this into my job, because like all of you, I need to eat, even though maybe I could lose a little bit of weight, but I need to eat and I need to pay my rent and all the rest of it. So there'll be a distinction in our project between everything which is free, including, for example, everything we do on social media, all the discussions, all these lives, for example. All of this is me giving my time and really, really enjoying it. It doesn't seem like work at all to me. I love writing in the morning. I love making the films. Now I have all the good equipment. Angelica says 1 million global citizens. That's what we want. Global citizen is really the key to this. Okay, so that's a great comment. Thanks, Angelica. And so we want to grow this group, and everything, like I said, everything that we do on social media will always be free. And then I want to develop, for those people who really want to take this a step further, some other services and products which might or might not be interesting for you. So, like I said, all of our discussions and chats and all of my essays and YouTube posts and all the rest of it is completely free, will always be free. But what I would like to do in the future is to help other people who are out there also maybe develop themselves and explore parts of their skill set which they haven't yet fully explored. And I think that's going to become more important as AI takes more and more standard jobs away. And I think it's going to be quite important that all of us begin to reassess what we can do for the world, what we can do in the world, and how we can really go about that. And this is my answer. So what I'm doing here with you right now is my answer, having left the first career I had in education, and then I went up to working in the Ministry of Education in Bangladesh, but I got very far from the classroom, which is where I wanted to be at the beginning, and I kind of grew a little bit tired of working in a bureaucracy. So then I switched, age 45, that was 15, 16 years ago, to translation, which I did full time for the next 12 years. And then I got more into social media, and now here I am. I've left translation because even though there's still work around, I've actually given away my clients to a colleague of mine who I worked with quite a lot and trusted. And so I didn't try to sell my business. I just walked away from it and said, okay, that's in the past now, and I want to start something new. And it was when I couldn't really think what to do and I was busting my brains that I came up with this idea of 700 days to live. And I'm hoping it'll become like a snowball. I don't know how much people talk about snowballs in other hotter countries like in Nigeria. But anyway, this is a snowball which I hope will really grow and then become a movement together as we learn and dialogue and communicate. So part of what I'm going to be offering in the future is a kind of coaching, I guess. And this isn't going to happen yet. I need a bit more time for the group to grow, the group to settle, and for all this to kind of bed down before I can offer. There are two types of coaching I can offer. One is that people might want to start their own movement or their own tribe. We use the word tribe quite a lot in these social media circles to describe a group of people who are working towards a common goal. There might be a sports team as a tribe, there might be people who like yoga, there might be people who like drones, people who like a specific football club. They're all tribes. Basically, any group with a common interest is a tribe. And I have a feeling that there's room for a lot more tribes out there in the world, and that those people watching today and who watch this video later will be able to think of tribes that they could lead. Okay, so as you see, all I've got is enthusiasm and the ability to communicate that enthusiasm and bring people together. It's not rocket science, it's simply a lot of energy and a lot of contribution and a lot of writing and thinking. So, one of my possible avenues going forward will be to take people who would like to do something similar but in a different interest group. For example, if you love butterflies, or if you love a certain kind of dog, or if you are into cooking, or if you are into, let's say, quilting or crocheting, you might be able to gather people together and really help them learn and develop together. Because one of my key theories is that we need more connection, that people are a little bit lost, that we're bombarded with notifications, and notifications mean lots of connectivity, but they don't mean lots of connection. So I'm hoping that we can create these tribes and get people talking and working together in real life and on screen. We have to accept the existence of screens. That's a part of our life now. But being part of a tribe of whatever it is, it might be fans of a Korean pop group, it might be people who like Nike shoes, whatever. But whenever there's a group of people together, they're usually happy to be brought together by someone who's willing to step up and take that responsibility. So that could be you. You could become a tribal leader. Okay. So one of the coaching sessions I will be offering in the future is how to do exactly what I'm doing, step by step, so that you can begin your own tribe. And it might start off with a small thing, it might grow into something much bigger. You never know. My guess is that if you do it well, then people will gather around you, because people like to gather together, and to do that, they need leaders. Now, we have leaders and we have followers out there in the world, but many of you have the potential to be leaders, and I would like to help you realize that potential. That's number one. Number two might be for those people who don't quite feel up to setting off their own tribe. There might be a lot of people out there, and I've met certainly quite a few myself, who just feel a little bit lost. Their own job is being eaten away by AI, and they simply don't know what to do next. They're clinging on to the remains of what their job was. Their client numbers going down, their income level is going down, and I think for those types of people, the first session before they even think of starting their own tribe would be to find their way out of the position in the maze where they're lost right now. And so I'm going to develop another kind of service called the roadmap for people. So people will come to me, as has happened many times, and say things like, I'm lost. I really don't know what to do next with my job. I'm mid-40s, I'm mid-30s even. I've got many years ahead. I need to earn money. I'm not sure what to do. And I found out over the years, in those situations, I have a gift for being able to make things clearer for people and help them see the choices that they have. So that's another thing that I want to offer in the future, will be this idea of a roadmap, which will be taking you from where you are right now, not making you into something else, but just talking to you and helping you see everything you've got to offer from an objective point of view and all the possibilities you could do. My experience is that every time I do that with somebody, they come away thinking, wow, I didn't even realize I could do that. Sometimes we get a bit stuck in our own thoughts and we go round and round and round in circles. So it's really a valuable thing to spend an hour with somebody and have them reflect back to you, but not just reflect and repeat what you already know, but really make you think about all the possibilities in front of you. Then we're going to do other things within our tribe as the numbers grow. We're going to be meeting each other on screen once a week in the future. We're going to have webinars where we talk to people who can bring new aspects of life. We have in the group somebody who is blind, for example. I would love us to do a webinar with him, Stefan from Albania. I don't know if you're listening to this today. And of course they would be paid for, because then you've got people's time involved and you've got effort involved in preparation. But to have an insight into the life of somebody who is blind, or other people with different gifts or different abilities or different disabilities, that I think is going to be very valuable, because it comes back to the communication aspect, and that communication aspect in turn is based on curiosity. So I think this is a group for the curious. It's a group for the people who want to find out more about the world around them, who want to break down more barriers, who want to understand other people and where they're coming from. Okay. We might even do masterclasses. Now, masterclasses will be like webinars, but with people who really made it in a specific area. People like my sister, Catherine, who is a writer for the BBC and took 40 years of writing and acting in order to be able to finally get her own series, which won great acclaim. So that's going to be another interesting aspect, is we'll speak to people who really made the grade in whatever field in life, and we'll try and extract the juice from them. We'll try and get the learning from them so that we can apply it to our own lives. Maybe you don't want to become a writer for the BBC, but there will be elements in my sister's story which I guarantee will speak to you and will give you ideas for your own story. Because that's the whole point of this group as well, is not just to say, look at me, this is what I've done, or even look at that person over there, that's what they've done, but to say, let's look at what other people are doing, and let's take away from that some learning, some lessons that we can apply to ourselves. And I think there's not a single person around, the person sweeping the street in the morning on your street, or the person who's emptying the bins at night while you're asleep. There are things which we can learn from them. Yeah, so Angelica, you're right. I'll be introducing my sister. That we have a friend in the group who is a pop star in Argentina. Now, maybe you don't want to become an Argentinian pop star, but her journey is also very interesting because she went from producing stuff which her producers wanted her to sing to finding her own voice, and she's only 28 years old. So she has found already as an artist her own voice, and that is the generic learning we can bring to that. For example, we don't want to sing songs in Spanish, maybe you do, but what we want to do is learn from her how to find your voice, how to express that voice, how to defend your voice as an artist. Then another person, talking about voice, another person I would love to bring before you for a masterclass is a guy who's acting as my voice coach. Because when I began this journey and I decided that I wanted to be speaking to people quite a lot, I realized I didn't really like my voice. Now, a lot of people say that. A lot of people don't like their photographs, whatever, and we don't see ourselves the way other people see us. But I did find that I had a problem with the tone and the pitch of my voice. So I hired this guy, and he is very, very good at what he does. And I have a feeling that the lessons he's taught me directly this time about using the voice would be very, very useful for many people in this group who are going to have to find a new voice as the work and professional landscape changes in future. And then finally, I'm going to talk about a couple of products that I want to develop in future too. I want us to have a journal, a 700 Days to Live journal, where we can ask ourselves and each other questions and maybe spend some time every day writing in a beautiful leather-bound or vegan leather-bound book where we can write down our thoughts and ask ourselves some tough questions. And as we ask those questions, we become, again, more conscious and more intentional. So we get to decide and think about aspects of our lives that we've never really brought to consciousness. They exist, like our relationship with our family is just something that we get on with every day, with its ups and with its downs. But the moment we begin to write these things down and to reflect and take some quiet time out to think about them, then that is great. So SBS is asking, what does that mean for us watching? Is that just about you? No, I would say, but the very opposite. I mean, it's a great question. It's the very opposite. It's about you. I'm 61. I don't need really to think much more about the way I live because a lot of it is behind me. But what I want to do is to bring you lessons to help you live in a fuller way and in a way that gives you more access to new ideas and more global thinking. Okay. So Georgiana says, I can never journal because there are a lot to write. Some not very interesting, so I never get into it. I think that's a problem, Georgiana, that a lot of people mention. And that's because if you start off with a blank page in the morning, it is very difficult. You might end up even writing, like when you were a school kid, writing, I woke up, I brushed my teeth, I had my breakfast, and then there's so much in life. So a guided journal is what I'm talking about. A regular journal is just a blank page where you feel overwhelmed, as you said exactly, by how much there is to write. But a guided journal will direct you, and you can turn to any page you want. There's no specific order, but you can ask yourself questions, or it will ask you questions, and you will be forced to answer the questions for that day. Now, if you imagine a journal might have different categories, there might be part about your finances, there might be part about your professional life, there might be partly about your relationships, there might be partly about your spiritual life, or they might be about your health, for example. So whereas setting up to write a journal first thing in the morning is always going to be difficult because life is just so complex and so abundant, if I ask you a question like, what one thing would you change about your health? Or what aspect of your spending are you least happy with? Or what one thing would you want to do to change your sporting activity? And we can go into questions which are more deeply personal to each person. The questions will be the same, but each person will of course bring their life to the question. And so the answers, we have 8 billion different answers in the world, even if we ask the same question to 8 billion people. Okay? So in spiritual life, the question might be, where do you find peace and quiet? Where do you find calm moments in your life, which is increasingly frantic? Okay? If we have a question about professional life, it might be, do you feel fulfilled in your work? Or what aspects? What would you change about your work? Or would you like to change your job? So a guided journal is something that's going to be much more easy, much easier for you to handle, and much easier for you to spend 5 minutes a day with a question which focuses you like a laser, where you don't necessarily have to pluck something from the air. And then the final product I want to develop. Okay, so let me just read Georgiana's comment. It's not just me. Yes, that's what I found, Georgiana, to be honest. I've tried to write journals at various times over the years, but I found exactly the same problem as you. And then when I went online to look at Amazon, to look at certain specific guided journals, because there are products out there, I found the questions a little bit too wishy-washy and a bit too generic. Write down 3 things that made you happy today. Write down 2 things that made you frustrated today. I'd rather get in there and really pull things apart a little bit more and get people to talk and think and reflect in more depth. Because I think if you just say what made me happy or what are you feeling grateful for today, it's quite easy after a while to come back and ask the same questions. So you can say things like, okay, I'm grateful for my mom, I'm grateful for the flowers, I'm grateful for the trees. Okay, and then the next day you might think, oh, I'm grateful for my mum, I'm grateful for the chocolate I had yesterday. And it's easy to skate over the surface. But if I come along and ask you, what aspect of your spending are you least happy about? That forces you to dig deeper and to bring stuff from inside up to the surface. And that's going to push you further and help you develop faster as a human being. That's my thesis. And then finally, I'm going to develop these packs of cards. I'm really excited by this idea. I'm telling you about it now for the first time. No doubt I'll mention it in the future, but this is the first time I've mentioned it in public. So let's say a pack of cards. Let's take the subject of finance. I will have 4 packs. And in each pack, there will be questions about 7 topics. So if I can remember them all, one is your social life, one is your spiritual life, one is your professional life, one is your mental or intellectual life, one is your physical life, one is your familial life or your relationships, and the last one is your financial life. Okay, I hope I didn't repeat any there. Anyway, so in each pack, there will be a pack for individuals. So instead of maybe writing a journal, you can spend 5 minutes just taking out one color card. Let's say all the financial ones are green. Green is the color of money. So you might have a financial question. You just pull it out because that day you want to answer financial questions. And you'll send it over and it'll be a question for you, like in the journal, and therefore a question that's quite penetrating. Are you saving enough money? If not, why not? What is stopping you saving? What are you buying that you could cut down on? For example, that's a question between you and your own conscience. Then I'll make a pack for couples. So imagine that you're with your boyfriend, with your girlfriend, whatever. You're out and you're talking together and you decide to play this game of cards and you pick out a financial one. Now this time between the couple, you might say, what aspect of my spending do you not like? Or what aspect of what thing that I bought recently do you think was a waste of money? So that's a question between couples, hopefully not just leading to arguments. There can also be things like, what have I done for you financially? Name 3 things where I've helped you financially. So that would be the couples pack. And then there will be a family pack where families might discuss money. So the parents might ask the children, for example, what would happen if I doubled your pocket money? What would you do with it? Or the kids might ask the parents, do you have enough money? Why not? If you're our parents, why do you think that you've got enough money? Or why do you think you haven't got enough money? So it'll be interesting to bring families together around the table, not just around screens, and to get them dialoguing and talking together. And the final one will be for a place like this, a bar, where you might go with your friends, and it'll be like a board game, and there the questions will be much more light-hearted and get people laughing together. A question might be, what's the stupidest thing you've ever bought and immediately regretted? Or what's the most expensive thing you've bought and regretted? Or what's the most expensive thing you've bought and you're very proud of? So they're questions which are less intimate, less personal, but really nice to hear about and to laugh about. And if you imagine that between the individual pack is more about reflection, but the couples pack is more about communication. The family pack is more about communication face to face, and not just every kid going off to their screen while the parents look at their screen. And the friends, instead of everybody looking at their phone down the cafe, the friends pack would be people speaking and laughing and having fun together. So that brings us back to the start of this talk, which is now 36 minutes, so I'm going to stop it very, very soon. It's about asking ourselves and each other questions. That's the intentional living part. It's about dialogue with your family, with your partner, with your friends, and with the world, across the world, talking to people from Africa, from Asia, from North and South America, from Europe, and finding out different perspectives. And finally, it's about watching a project being born. This is only week 2 of this project, and I'm delighted to see people like Georgiana, like SBS, like the person who came from Nigeria. Let me scroll and find her name. There was Blackie. I didn't know where Blackie came from. And then there was I have to say this right, Uluwatoyin Isomot came from Nigeria. Nigeria, a country I love very much, because I know many people who are Igbo, who are Hausa or Yoruba speakers. So anyway, that's all for today, for the first live from YouTube. It's been great talking to you, and I really look forward to hooking up next week, every Saturday, at the same time, here on my YouTube channel, and let's build this global dialogue, let's build this global project together. All right, bye-bye for now, everyone.